The phrase "he would not hurt a fly" is often meant to be a point of virtue. How much of that has now been overextended, where we've become neutered, castrated in our strength, so that we're not able to protect the loved ones that God has called us to protect. So what would it look like for us to reclaim our fierce goodness? For my son, this fly was simply one of his first dragons, his initiation into becoming a warrior who can continue fighting for good throughout the rest of his life. They say a good man will not hurt a fly, but maybe that's the problem. My 3-year-old son killed his first fly this week, and I could not have been prouder. We were simply hanging out one afternoon in our kids' playroom, and I made a passing comment about a fly buzzing around. I was not directing it toward my son, it was just a passing comment. But he still jumps into action, finds the fly swatter, and begins his hunt. He's at an age where he wants to do everything himself. Mostly this is just getting dressed or doing some chores around the house, but now he wants to kill this fly. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure you're going to get this fly, particularly when I start to observe his technique, where he wasn't really swatting the fly, it was more of just touching the fly. But eventually he gets it. And he's proud, I'm proud, and then he repeats it a few days later. And now I'm curious about why my son killing a fly makes me smile. Why does it make me so proud that my son is willing to take the initiative and kill this fly? The phrase "he would not hurt a fly" is often meant to be a point of virtue, to display someone's gentleness, that they would not cause harm to others. But part of me started to wonder how much that is also castrating and neutering the strength of men. That part of our masculinity, part of our strength is to rise to the occasion, to protect others, to stop any threats that come against our loved ones. And so when we're killing a fly, for example, while that's just a small pest, how much of that is still pointing to those deeper realities of the purpose of our strength, that our strength is to bring more life and goodness into the world. And there's a procreative side to that, but there's also a protective side of that, that anything that threatens our life and goodness and beauty and truth, that we have a duty to rise and stand against that threat. And so my son, while just 3 and just killing a fly, there's a glimmer of that masculine strength that's already taken root in him, that he's willing to protect our home against these pesky flies. But this is exactly what his strength is for, and it's exactly what our strength is for as well. But how many of us have been taught not to harm a fly, to simply be more passive and gentle? And while there's good elements there, how much of that has now been overextended, where we've become neutered, castrated in our strength, so that we're not able to protect the loved ones that God has called us to protect our communities from threats, things that harm goodness, harm beauty, harm the truth that God has given us? Are we now so passive that we're not able to stand against these things? And so what would it look like for us to reclaim our fierce goodness, to fight, to stand, to defend all that God has called us to protect, and for us to celebrate that instinct in our sons and each other, even in small ways? Well, certainly our battle is not just against flies. We do have a duty to protect and stand against those spiritual forces of evil that seek to still kill and destroy the goodness of life that God is trying to give us. For my son, this fly was simply one of his first dragons, his initiation into becoming a warrior who can continue fighting for good throughout the rest of his life. And for us to remember as well that our goodness and strength is not to simply passively avoid harm, but at times to be aggressive, to be dangerous, to prevent harm from others, to protect those that God has given us to protect. If this resonates with you, then like and subscribe and share with other men who might need help getting in touch with their fierce warrior once again. And then check out this next video on the role of evil in our story, that sometimes we forget, but evil still exists. Check that out here.